All right, we are going to take Paul's advice, of course. One of the things I do want to do is, you may have heard on the call, he mentioned resetting the CAM. That's the KAM, which is the Keep Alive memory. And I can actually reset the memory using this tool here. Actually, for this, you've got to have it key on, engine off. And you can also do this same thing, basically resetting the computer by unplugging the battery for like 15 minutes or so. But this way it'll be quicker. So now we've got our memory reset. And I'm just going to see if possibly, now that we've got everything reset, if this will bring up our long terms. Ooh, I got food coming. All right, so let's bring up the long-term trim. Yeah, and it didn't change anything. Going to bring up a short term. 1 second, baby. You can see the short term's working. We still don't have the long term, so we're going to go ahead and take this for a drive and see if it works. But right now, I got pumpkin bread. Give me my pumpkin bread.
There you go.
Thank you. You want to go for a ride?
No.
Okay.
Looks like you don't have room.
I do. It'd be easier if you film the computer. I have to do it while I'm driving.
Okay.
All right, cool. All right. Vicki is going to come over and film the computer for you guys so that I can keep my eyes on the road. So she's going to get some shoes on. We'll be right with you. Yeah, Paul's wife was on the phone. They're on a trip. So it's family day today.
Nice.
Yes. All right, so let's bring up long-term 2. We've got our parameters set up. Again, our problem here is that these long terms keep reading 0. According to Paul, we're going to change those if we drive the vehicle. And that'll give us a direction on why there's a rough idle. I will tell you there is a rough idle. And also if I accelerate, you really feel the engine really hesitate. Down here at the bottom, we've got our oxygen sensors. These are our front bank 1 and bank 2 front oxygen sensors. And we'll be doing some fuel tests with that in a little bit. And of course, our short terms, I do believe, are working. So Vicki, I'm going to give you the camera here, and basically you just need these right here in the screen.
Okay.
And it's good to go. All right.
Sorry.
That's all right. It's hard to film and do this. Yeah, it definitely stumbles. All right, so we're driving along here. Now with the car under load, we can also see what our fuel trims are looking like. They're still pretty good on the short term. I do have a feeling that there is a 0 point on the long terms. It's just not showing. I still don't see these long terms going. All right, go over here. Oh, wow, it really hesitates bad when you come to a stop and then hit the gas pedal to move again. All right, hang on 1 second because I need to put it wide open throttle. We're going to look at our oxygen sensors here as I floor this thing. They should go rich, and they do. So this is not a fuel delivery issue.
I am the worst camera person ever.
It's really hard to do. You should try it while you're driving.
Okay. I don't think so.
So I really do believe this is a vacuum leak, but we have to have that long-term evidence to prove it. And we are not seeing any long-term adjustment. Now, here's one of the problems. One of the things is that we may not have a vacuum leak. And of course, then there's no reason that the long-term needs to adjust. Maybe it actually really is at 0. The problem is while driving, there should be at least some fluctuation, even if it's just a few tenths. And we are not seeing that. Those long terms should not be fixed at 0, even if there is no long-term adjustment. There's going to be some variability. And the reason for the oxygen sensor variability there is we were going up a hill, so of course we're running a little bit rich as I'm speeding up. But then as we're coasting down a hill, like right now, you're going to see them go lean like that. And that's because of a fuel shutoff when we're coasting. But oxygen sensors are absolutely working. How much time we got left on the camera? Should be up in the top right corner. I think the battery's 19 minutes. This car runs really bad. It's pretty smooth when you get it going, but boy, when you take off from a stoplight or stop sign, it hesitates so bad. It just screams of a vacuum leak. And actually, what I'm thinking of doing, if we don't get these long terms to kick in, I believe what I'm going to do is we're just going to go in the direction of a vacuum leak and look for any evidence of it and see if we can just fix it if it's a vacuum leak without having the long terms. The only problem with it is I like to see the confirmation of the repair. And the problem is that it's going to be hard to see confirmation of the repair other than the short terms will go negative for a while. But I want to see the change in the long term, and of course we're not going to see it. I wish that guy would choose one side of the road. Good grief. Want some pumpkin bread? No. All right. Super delicious. All right, we're gonna head back. What?
I can't hold it still.
No, it's fine. You can get a picture of this nice scenery. This is just outside of our neighborhood, the new house, and we're like right on the edge of where a rural part meets a subdivision. It's pretty nice scenery up here. A little more exciting than looking at a couple of zeros on long-term trim. It's like a ranch over here. That is pretty cool. Anything going on with our zeros? Nothing. So, guys, one of the things I've been doing, I can't even count how many hundreds of videos, and I know for a fact that I have done many a long-term fuel trim analysis on a Ford with it parked in my garage. And I didn't have to drive the vehicle in order to get it to read anything. So I'm a little concerned about that. Obviously Paul has a lot more experience with this than I do, and maybe I haven't had a 2002 Ford. That's possible, but I am a little bit concerned that we are not going to get these long terms to kick in.
You lost your cameraman.
Oh, what are you doing?
All right.
Are you looking around for houses?
All right. I think we're back with a little.
Okay. Yeah, like I was saying, I don't think we're going to get these long terms to kick in. And one of my concerns is that if a long term is not being reported, then, and not to the scan tool, but basically if the PCM is not calculating a long term, then we're not going to fix this car unless we get those long terms working. And I don't see that driving it is going to do this. We got some guy in the middle of the road on his bike. What in the hell is he doing?
Get out of the road. Girl.
Oh boy. Yeah, these guys don't have an HOA. I'll bet they can do car repairs all day and not have to worry about it. There's my garage right there. That would be awesome. Look at the garage is 3 times bigger than the house. That's cool. Gonna put the O2 sensors here. I want to look at the O2 sensors. I just want to see what the pattern on the oxygen sensors is. That's looking pretty normal. Just wide open throttle for 1 second here. You see they go rich. That is absolute confirmation that There is not a fuel delivery issue. So we can rule out some variables here. Hey baby, can you do me a favor? When we get to the stop sign here, can you use the touchpad and click on the second tab, live data meter?
There we go.
That's all right, it's hard to do.
It's a rough ride.
Yeah, this car's not the most comfortable. Okay, great. Nothing on the long term still. So I'm going to call it quits on this. We're going to head back. And based just strictly on the symptoms and the elimination of a few variables, we are going to go in the direction of a vacuum leak as the most likely cause here. I think what I'm going to do is just make this easy. We could spray brake cleaner around the intake, stuff like that. But I'm just going to put it on a smoke machine and see if we get a vacuum leak. All right, guys, I'm back in my garage here, and we did not get those long-term. See, just for a second there, that's what I was trying to catch earlier. The long-term blipped. So I don't know if that was accurate or not, but I thought it read 25, which was 25.00. I highly doubt that's maxed out. Even if it was maxed out, of course, we wouldn't have our short-term variability because the short-term would still be trying to add. So I don't know. I am not totally convinced there isn't something wrong with this long term. You know, maybe it does this when it's maxed out. No, it wouldn't, because again, the short terms would not have variability. This indicates that we are at stoichiometry right now. So either there is no vacuum leak, there is no long-term fuel adjustment, or a rich condition for that matter, or there is just simply no long-term reporting. Or we are at a long-term setting, but it's just not reflected here. It's just not showing. All right, we are going to go in the direction of a vacuum leak because there really is just nothing else that we can do right now. So let's see what happens. All right, I recognize this is kind of cheating a little bit, having a smoke machine as a do-it-yourselfer. But the point of this is that I know that I need to use the smoke machine because I know that I have multiple evidences of a vacuum leak being the most likely cause here, despite the fact that I can't get the conclusive evidence from long-term fuel trim. But if we look here, we've got a pretty significant leak right there at the EGR valve. The gasket I can see is bad. I hope that bolt isn't broken. There's just a tiny amount coming from the throttle body right where the throttle connects to, and that's pretty typical. You'll see that on pretty much any car that has the mechanical throttle. I don't see any other evidence of a leak. But yeah, it's pretty good leak at the EGR valve. So I am going to go ahead and repair that, seal that up, verify that it is fixed, and then we'll run the car again. And what I'm hoping to do is see that we get some adjustment in the short-term fuel trims, at least for a minute. Also, by the way, indicating that there was a memorized long-term for this, for sure. But also it'd be confirmation that we fix this leak and hopefully our symptoms improve. But given the data I have, I really don't have any other way of going. So I'm going to go ahead and fix this and hope that that does it. All right, well, while replacing the EGR valve gasket, by the way, one of the bolts for the EGR was broken. The other one was loose. So that's why there was all that smoke pouring out at the intake manifold at the gasket surface there. This thing wasn't even really tightened down, which is a vacuum leak. But whatever the case, there were some kind of things that are bothering me when I was taking this off that I was noticing. Clearly someone was in there before me, as usual is the case. And it looked like it was some pretty significant work, like possibly even an engine replacement or something like that. So I don't know the history on this car. But one of the things I did want to do to try to get evidence of that is I pulled a spark plug. You can see that is brand new spark plug pretty much. One of the things, by the way, that also bothers me, if you look at it, we've got some dielectric grease on the terminal here. And the thing is, people don't understand what dielectric grease is. They think it's some kind of high conductivity grease that you put on a spark plug to better improve your spark transfer. That is not what it is. Dielectric grease is like dielectric. It's the exact opposite. The dielectric grease needs to go on the porcelain insulator, and it's to prevent any spark from jumping past where it should be at the contact here. And also, of course, to keep the spark plug boot from permanently sticking on there so you can remove it easier. But it doesn't go onto the terminal on the spark plug. And that worries me a little bit because that could affect the spark pattern. So what I may do, I don't know if I'll show it in the interest of time, but I'll probably just go ahead and do a spark test using my scope on each cylinder just to make sure that there isn't some kind of misfiring or spark issue that could have been caused by dielectric grease. But yeah, when you got somebody in there before you, that a lot of times introduces a lot of new variables. All right, got the new EGR gasket in. We're going to repeat the smoke test here to make sure that it's sealed. But while I was, just doing the bolt turning, you get time to think a little bit. And it occurred to me there was a major oversight that I made, and I don't think this is going to fix it. While that was a pretty significant leak. And the reason is the oversight that I made is I forgot that I reset the cam, and that changes everything. If you think about it, resetting the cam, if my argument, which is there is a memorized long-term fuel trim that adjusted for a vacuum leak, and for some reason, I don't know why, it's just showing 0 on my scan tool, but actually I believe there was an adjustment. Well, the problem is that I reset that adjustment when I reset the cam. And what would have happened is when we then started the car to drive it, we would have seen, because we would still have the vacuum leak, but we reset the fuel trims all to 0, we would have seen those short terms skyrocket, and that never happened. That is conclusive proof to me that I was wrong. Now, of course, the EGR valve leak, that was pretty significant there, still need to be fixed, but I don't think that it's going to be the issue with this car. We would have seen those short terms skyrocket when running the engine after resetting the cam. So yeah, I just thought about that while I was doing the bolt turning and stuff. But get a little time to think a little more clear when you're not filming and all that. But what we're going to do nonetheless is, let me crank up the smoke machine here. Let's take a look. All right, we can see we no longer have the smoke billowing out there. And we got some over here, but that's just a little bit coming off of my glove that I put on to seal the intake. Sometimes when you seal up a larger leak like that, you then can detect some smaller ones because you build up more pressure then. But I do believe that we have nothing else here, just that little bit from my glove is all I see. So I'm going to go ahead and put this all back together. The plan is I want to set up my computer with the key on, engine off, to track the short and long-term fuel trims. And what I want to see is there any change in the short-term trims where they go negative or something as a result of this repair. And of course, I don't anticipate we're going to see it because it's the opposite of what we just did when we reset the cam and drove the car when there was still a suspected vacuum leak. So yeah, let me get everything back together again, and that's going to be our plan, but not too hopeful on it. All right, we're going to connect back up. We've got the key on. And quite honestly, I wouldn't mind if this fixed the idle problem and the engine runs smoother, but I will very much mind if we see the fuel trims change, because there would be no explanation for that. And I cannot settle with there being no scientific explanation for something. That happens all the time in life, but not on a car. There is an explanation for that fuel trim on the long term being 0. That is not supernatural or anything. I just don't know what it is. But it would be inexplicable if we see these fuel trims go negative on the short term. That just absolutely should not happen. Let's go ahead and pull up current. We should just have the battery code we do. That's just from disconnecting or clearing the cam. Disconnecting the battery would also do that. All right, we are going to bring up our short term. That's pretty interesting reading to start with. Engine is not running right now. And our long term. Again, long terms pegged at 0 still. All right, let's start this engine up and see what it looks like. It's just really suspicious the way these are perfectly in exact unison on the short terms. I'm not even sure what to say about that. Let's bring up a engine coolant temperature down here. I did have to go and get a gasket and all that for the EGR valve. Hard to imagine that it cooled down too much. Now we got like 170. All right, let me crack open the garage door just a bit. The location where that gasket was leaking, it would have just let fresh air into the intake. It would not have let exhaust gas into the intake. I did, of course, test the EGR valve when I removed it, and it is working. So that would have only been a vacuum leak. So I would have expected these numbers to be lower, if anything, not higher. Maybe that would be different if exhaust was getting in. But that definitely wouldn't have been the case. So I can't really explain why the fuel trims are, on average, a bit higher right now. And I've honestly never seen anything like this. I'm just really, I don't believe for a second the long trims are really 0. And I am a little bit perturbed that if anything, the short terms increase slightly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try resetting the cam. I wonder if I can do this while engine is running. Probably not. Yeah, you can. Then I'm going to hop back here. And what I want to do is see if we get another blip show up here for long-term fuel trim and see if it reads anything different. Indicating that there is long-term fuel trim being set, but there's just some kind of reporting thing. But if it read, you know, anything like -10 or 2 even, I don't care, something different. But I just don't buy this, that it's just stuck perfectly at 0. Now that this has been running for a little bit, we can see our fuel trims stabilized back to 0 again. Earlier running, you know, 10, 15 in closed loop. And this is telling me that there's been a long-term set which zeroed our short term. That's what I believe. There had to have been something that zeroed my short terms here. And nothing changed on the long term. So I still believe there is some long-term set, but it's just showing zeros because of some error, some communication error. And honestly, with my methods here, I'm kind of dead in the water, because for all I know, maybe this engine is running rich. Now I've noticed something that's really bugging me a lot, and that is that the hesitation is a lot smoother. A lot smoother. Yeah, it's just crazy. Watch. that. Let it settle down. The engine responds absolutely perfectly now. Look at that. There's no judder or stumble. And it's absolutely smooth and responsive. For Christ's sakes, I don't even know what to say about that. Let's look back at our fuel trims here. I'm going to drive this car again. I just want to see how the throttle feels because it was unmistakable. It was absolutely driving like crap before. And I just want to see if, if nothing else, at least the car is fixed maybe, but I have no explanation for this. Okay, we're going to take this for a test drive, and now I'm kind of starting to think that maybe there is something more to this. And that is, if we look, we've got a bunch of lights on the dashboard here. We've got the low washer fluid. That is connected, and there is washer fluid in there. The washer fluid's actually full. We've got a door ajar light on, and none of the doors are ajar. We've got an airbag light. We didn't see any codes when I ran all of the codes before. Let me just drive this car real quick, but I think this may lend some credence to the idea that there's some kind of communication error or something. I want to take a look at the network signals off of this car and see if maybe this could be more of a network problem. And that may explain why I'm not seeing long-term trim. Now, every other PID works, though, so I can't really explain that. And there isn't like a separate network for fuel trims. All of the PIDs are on the same network lines, so that actually wouldn't make sense. I don't know, I may look at it anyway. All right, well, I don't want to spend too much time on this because I really don't think this is going to be an issue, but I did want to check the network signal, just given the strange lights on the dashboard. There is no airbag code showing. I did check, and we did check that before at the beginning of the video too. So I'm not sure why the airbag light is on, but I thought there might be some network issue. And what's odd is that we've got a couple of ports here for some other network signals. It looks like I've got a K-line port, and also there's a CAN low port as well up here, but none of them are functional. The only one that's functional is the 1850 VPW port. We can see the signal looks reasonably good there. So yeah, I'm not quite sure why there's other pins available that don't seem to be functional. Well, or maybe they should be functional, but I would have to look that up and see what the design is for the network on this particular vehicle, but I'm just really not convinced that that's our direction we need to go because, again, we see the other scan tool data PIDs. And this would be something if I wasn't able to get the scan tool to communicate at all, this is the direction we would go. But I really don't think there's anything here, but just wanted to show you guys this. Let me just drive this car and see if this idle problem is fixed, because if nothing else, I can send this car back and say, here, your car is fixed. And I'm happy about it. Let's take a look here while I'm driving. Wow, the pedal is so much more responsive right now. Let's go ahead and take a look here. Wow, the car drives completely differently. That EGR valve had to have been... That's the only thing I did. Wow. You press on the gas and it just immediately responds. Take a look over here. Still nothing on the long terms. This is just so inexplicable. This is like a different truck now. And I'm not happy about it, ironically. I just don't like not having the explanation. Wow. It's tremendously different. All right, I am going to go back to generic again. I don't even know why, just because. Still no codes, that's good. I wonder if there's codes, but it's not communicating them. Let's go here and see if this reads in generic mode any different. And it does not. Really wish I could read some long terms. We've been driving this car probably a total of 35 minutes, and there's no way that these readings are accurate on the long term. No way. All right, let's get out of here. Car is responsive. And the idle is much smoother. I honestly cannot explain that. Okay, guys, I want to do a little experiment here because I'm really concerned about the fact that it seems that we have long-term fuel trim adjustment, but that it is just fixed at 0 on my scan tool. Yet clearly it's working. So what I'm going to do to test that is I'm going to take a can of propane right here. I'm going to turn it just a bit. Okay. I'm going to add this into the brake booster. And what's going to happen is, of course, we're going to see a rich response. So we should go rich here. We do. No change on the long term, of course. Look at our short term. We're going negative. So that's good, but then watch what happens. I'm going to come back in about a minute here. Well, actually, I'll just stay live with you just so you can see. And look at that. It's starting to zero out. So the short terms are zeroing out, but look, we returned our stoichiometry. But check it out. There's long-term trim. Because we've zeroed our short terms, we've returned stoichiometry on our O2 sensors. Let's do it again. I'm going to take my propane here. Of course, now we're going to run really, really, really lean. Let's just see what happens here. I'm curious. So you can see bottomed out the O2s. We're full lean here. Now on something like this, the long term's not going to be able to set a 0 point. On a brake booster leak like that, you're going to maximize your long term and short term trims, and you're never going to get it to return to stoichiometry. There's no way you can do a fuel addition that much to make up for this big of a leak. You saw our little blip again. And well, now I stand corrected because this short term is starting to adjust. And I'll be damned if this O2 sensor, wow, it's actually going negative. And that's adjusted. Now why would it be going negative? Well, that I don't understand at all. The fuel trims are going really negative on a huge vacuum leak. Now back up positive again. You can hear the effect on the engine. Just want to look at my O2 sensors here. These should be pegged lean. Yeah, we can see that our O2 sensors are peg leaned, so we're not able to correct for this extreme condition. But let me do this. Let me partially block that leak. I want just a little bit of a hiss like that. Okay, so now our short terms should start coming down. So now we've just got a small vacuum leak. Check out our O2s coming back. Now, of course, that could just be because the short term brought it there. Well, it is because the short term brought it there, of course. But then watch, we're going to get these to come to zero again. Give it a little time here. And yeah, they're definitely averaging lower for sure. And if we give this a little more time, I'll bet they come to zero. Let's go check our O2s. We're going to have stoichiometry on the O2s. Go back to our live data. And we can see these are definitely averaging a lot lower now. It's still not zeroed yet, but it's definitely averaging a hell of a lot lower. As if something is adjusting that. But our long-term fuel trim never changes through all of this. That for me is just really, really problematic to explain. And I really want my long-term trims so that I can get better direction on what's going on. Well, I don't know what to say. I mean, I guess I'm kind of happy in a way that the truck seems to be running, so I can give it back to the customer. The customer will be happy. But the problem is that in 8 years of doing this stuff now, I have never seen this before, and I just have no explanation for why there's no long-term fuel trim. That EGR leak, that is a direct leak to the intake manifold after the EGR. The EGR valve is closed, and you know that should have shown as a vacuum leak. It absolutely should have shown as a vacuum leak on the fuel trims, and it didn't. And you saw how big that was. It's not like I had the smoke machine cranked up really high. That was just a really significant vacuum leak that did not show. I guess something with the computer, but it still is able to make corrections. And I just don't understand if it's not doing a long-term correction, and we had a vacuum leak there, why the short terms weren't just holding high. But then the fact that they're coming to zero, that indicates to me that there's some long-term set, and we're not seeing it on the computer. Unbelievable. Well, I hate to end this video here, but unfortunately, this is the most that I can do with this car right now, so I just don't have an explanation. I do want to thank Paul Danner. I'm going to ask if he can watch this video and maybe give his 2 cents worth now that he's actually seen the behavior of the data and not just through my phone call. I'm sure he's going to agree that the long-term fuel trim on this car is not zero. I'm sure he's going to agree with that. So I'll ask him if he can watch it, and maybe we'll keep an eye on the comments and do a follow-up video based on his recommendation, you know, or if you guys have any. But that's it. Wow, weirdest video on this channel, I guess. All right, thanks for watching. Hope you found this fun. We'll see you next time.